Alright, well, I'm gonna kill him and eat him, I swear. He waits till I come out here to start squawking. Anyway, yeah, he's gonna be dinner. Well, it's about once every 20 seconds. That's pretty freaking annoying. So I guess I got 15 seconds to talk here. Anyways, I'm gonna try to start today working on getting this coolant leak fixed on the Eclipse here. So if you've seen any of the previous videos, I have a pretty significant coolant leak coming from up top. It's giving me about a drip a second at idle, so I can only imagine how much it's losing during actually driving the thing. I haven't found the exact, well, I found the location, but I don't know exactly where it's coming from yet. I'm going to take this intake manifold off here. Your water pump's down in here, and best I can tell from looking all through these little slots, there's a lake of coolant down in there. And it runs out and it drips down over this side where the transmission is. I don't have anything pouring out the bottom of the timing cover here, so it's not coming from this side of the water pump, although it may be coming from the other side, depends on the design of the pump itself. And there's also a metal coolant line that runs in here that has O-ring gaskets on each end, so it may be leaking from those gaskets, but I can't really see anything in here, so I'm just gonna have to take all this off to get a look down in there and see where it's coming from. And then this being the GTS model, it's got all this extra crap for the dual intake runners. There's one of the actuating valves right here, solenoid, what have you. So I got to be careful with all that stuff, make sure I don't bust or tear any of these vacuum lines that operate that system. So I'm going to work on getting everything detached from this manifold up here. I got this, the main wiring harness here. I got the freaking throttle cable I got to disconnect, all the solenoid crap. I'm just going to be careful, take it slow, one thing at a time, just get working on disconnecting everything. Some things might come out with it, but I'm going to work on getting as much disconnected as possible, and then get to getting these bolts out here and get this manifold off. Alright, so about 5 minutes in. So far I've got the harness here unbolted. I still got to take it apart down here. I got the front 3 injectors disconnected. To get this intake tracked off here, I found it easiest just go ahead and pull the battery out, and then I was able to twist that and pop that off. Right here's your fuel lines where it goes into the fuel rail, and I do not see a pressure relief. I was looking for that. Again, if you've seen any of the previous videos, here's that super dirty, this is actually a K&N, but you can't tell anymore, it's so nasty. So I'm either getting that replaced or I'm gonna get a cold air intake or something for this thing. So down here in the transmission, there's that coolant I was talking about. Well, I'm gonna work on getting more of this crap disconnected, and I'll get back at you in a minute. All right, so there's the throttle body disconnected. I got all my little vacuum lines off of it there for that dual runner. Most of this crap's disconnected. Had to pop off my throttle cable there, so that's done. I took the strap bar off here to make it easier to get back there to disconnect. Over here on this side, I got everything pulled apart too. Everything disconnected that needs to come out. So everything's good here. I had to pop out the coolant reservoir there. So now the worst part comes back in here. I'm just gonna have to kind of like shove my arm back in there and feel around and detach all of that from the manifold there. And I'll show you guys, get you a better look of it when this thing comes out so you can see where everything's attached. Also, I forgot till just about at this point, I'm doing the valve cover gaskets too, so this should be incorporated into the title somehow, but my rear one here is leaking, so I'm also going to do the valve cover gaskets while we have all this crap off. Alright, so about 45 minutes later, I got all this out finally. But now I'm going to double and triple check everything, but it should be ready to unbolt these mounting bolts in the front here so I can take this thing off. Oh, see, I forgot this line back here. That's the only thing holding me up right now. There we go. Alright, so there's with the upper intake manifold off. So here's your lower. Of course, you got your fuel rail there. There's another fuel rail right there. So that's going to be easy now. Valve cover, easy now. So here's those brackets I was talking about in the EGR. So you had a bolt here, bolt there, holding it, and then the 2 bolts for the EGR holding that. So there she is there, and this is the back side. where all that crap was connected. So now at this point I still can't get to where my coolant leak is because it's down under this lower intake manifold. But before I do that, I gotta vacuum all this crap up so it doesn't fall down in there. I think I'm done for the day too. I'll probably pick this up again tomorrow. Alright, it's the next day. It's a lot nicer out, if you couldn't tell. A lot brighter and sunnier. Yesterday it was like upper 40s. Today it's upper 60s. So I'm stoked about that. I got most of this vacuum down. I mean, there's still a few small pieces down in there, but that's all I could get with my vacuum. So now I got to work on getting this fuel rail out here, the injectors. And you know what I thought about last night? Spark plugs. You have to take that sucker off to get to the rear row of spark plugs. So I would be absolutely stupid not to replace the spark plugs while I was at it. And again, previous video or videos, I mentioned that I had a misfire at the top end of third gear at full throttle, which I did hook my scanner up to, and it's a cylinder 3 misfire. So I might possibly be doing the spark plug wires as well while I'm at it, checking out the distributor over there as well. But anyways, I'm going to get back to this intake manifold system here so I can get to that coolant leak. So no pressure. This is ridiculous. This is being held up by something down in here under this metal cover. I had to remove this section of the timing belt cover, and then there's a bolt down in there that you can unbolt from the lower manifold there. So anyways, there's that bastard of a bolt right there, and now this thing should come out. Alright, so there's that pipe I was talking about that runs from one side to the other. This is your water pump here. That's the back side of it. That's the front side of it where I just removed that bracket. And then it runs over here to this entire contraption here, which is the thermostat housing. So commonly, and what I'm suspecting, is these gaskets. There's an O-ring gasket in here at that end of the pipe, and then also at that end of the pipe. Now there's some people that say you can replace this thing without doing all this work, without taking off the upper and lower intake manifold. You just unbolt the thermostat housing here, and then you can pop that pipe out, replace the O-rings, shove it back in, bolt it back up. While that could work, doing it that method blindly, you run the risk of pinching or cutting the new O-rings when you shove it in there blindly. So there's that. Plus I wanted to get down in there and look anyways in case that wasn't the issue. So as I said, doing the rear valve cover gasket, or if you're doing spark plugs or spark plug wires back there, you're going to have to take all that off anyways. So anyways, at this point, I got to get this thermostat housing unbolted so I can pop this tube out and get those O-ring gaskets replaced. But we'll take a look at them when I get them out, see if we can see any visible wear on them or whatever. Which, by the way, I did already inspect the thermostat housing itself. You can easily stick your hand down under here and feel if it's wet or anything, and it's bone dry, so it's definitely not coming from there. So I went ahead and took the battery tray out here. That way I have all the room I need. I'm going to take the distributor out. Even though this is an 03, it still has a distributor. Well, there's the distributor cap. And there is definitely some corrosion and buildup there. You can see corrosion there. Hey, that's got a crack in it. I didn't even see that till I zoomed in. And then the rotor down here. This thing is... get a focus. Yeah, this thing is gone, man. I'm pretty sure too it's supposed to stick out a lot further than that. You can see the whole end of it's burnt off there. So yeah, and yep, I expected to find this too. You can see the oil on the boot there, so the O-rings down in there for the spark plug tubes there they're shot as well. So I expected to find that. So yeah, we'll be doing new valve cover gaskets on the rear and the front with the new O-rings to fix this oil issue here, which I would do the O-rings anyways. Surprised to see it with how neglected this thing is, that it's got NGK iridium plugs in it, and they don't look too bad. Like, the electrode's still in decent shape and the gap looks about right, so that's surprising. I'm still going to replace them anyways though. So anyways, there's the distributor out. You just got to pull back hard and wiggle and it'll eventually pop out. It's kind of sealed with that O-ring there. Alright, so there's that freaking thermostat housing. I went ahead and took my throttle body the rest of the way out and disconnected the lines from it because I was tired of it getting in my way. You got to pop the lines off the end here. There's 2 holes that run to your heater core and the firewall, whatever. They just pop out. They have that little rubber gasket too, which I have read that those can fail as well. So I might be replacing those while I'm at it. But now with this thing out of the way, now you can pull that tube out. All right, let's see if I can get this thing out of here now. There she is. I gotta say, this back gasket here, this rubber O-ring grommet, whatever you want to call it. See how this one's nice and puffy and round, and this one's flat. And then if you turn it over, you can see all that gunk right there. This one, the front side here, doesn't have any of that. See how it's relatively clean all the way around it? And on this side, that gasket's flat, and you can see all that crap that has, looks like it's gotten past it. So that is most likely the culprit. So again, technically you can pull this out without taking up the upper and lower intake manifold. But like I said, I'm doing the valve cover anyways, so I had to do that anyways. Plus I'm doing spark plugs and wires now as well. So again, it would still have to come off to do all of that. And then again, this is what you're looking at here. So when you put the new one on, you got to shove it in there blindly and then, you know, pop it in. There's a chance, especially since you're going to be holding it clear out here like this, trying to get it lined up and shoved in. You could, and you can't see anything with that manifold on there, you could pinch that gasket and tear it, and then you'll still have a leak. So also noticed, I was just looking at this distributor here, this O-ring here is pretty flat. You know, generally they should be round and protrude above the surface that they're sealing, and that one's pretty much flush. And looking down here, you see all that oil blow by there? Now I do have a valve cover gasket leak, but to me, especially after looking at the O-ring on that thing, I do believe it was leaking oil. So I'm going to replace the O-ring on this distributor as well. So now that's a few more things we found since the video I posted everything wrong with the $800 Eclipse, in which such I discussed what I discovered on the test ride and then what I discovered afterwards after getting it home in a more thorough investigation. But now we've also found our front valve cover, at least those O-rings for the spark plug holes are bad. The O-ring there for the distributor I do believe is bad. The cap and rotor are bad. It's likely if I tested these wires, they're probably not so great as well. And then of course the O-ring on this coolant pipe here, but we already knew that we had a coolant leak and most likely that's where it was coming from. But there's 3 or 4 more things we're discovering here to add to the list. So I went ahead and removed the back row of plugs and wires there, flipped the fuel rail up out of the way. I'm ready to take these valve covers off now. There's just a few things like brackets you got to get off. There's this pipe that runs from one end to the other. Anything else I find, there's probably a couple things attached. Pop them off and I'm going to get these valve covers off of here. Oh. What's interesting is this is all darkish colored and this is all clean looking, so I'm not quite sure what the reason for that is. The only thing I can think is because you add the oil here, so maybe over the past 20 years every time you would dump all the oil in for the oil changes and then start it up, it slings the oil everywhere. So maybe that's why this front is more discolored than the rear. I don't know, you tell me. But anyway, she looks good underneath. Discoloration's normal. You see all the rollers look pretty good there. Well, so now I can work on, go get the gaskets and all the O-rings I'm replacing, spark plugs, wires, cap and rotor and all that crap. And then get this thing back together. Now we have crappy weather. I think that's going to do it for this one. Wow, look at those clouds. Those are moving to the left, but the ones back there are just kind of stationary. We do have tornado warnings, well, watch, I should say, right now. Anyways, I think this will wrap this one up here. Just kind of a teardown video, if you will. So in the following video, I'm currently waiting on all my parts to come in, so it's going to take a week or more for me to get everything. I've ordered from several different places to source everything. But in the following video, I don't think I'm really going to show it all going back together. I think I'm just going to skip ahead to it being all back together and running, and then we'll go take her for a drive and see how she does after getting all the new parts in. Of course, the leak will be fixed and whatnot, the oil leaks and the coolant leak, but we'll also get to see how much better it runs with that tune-up, because I'm getting new plugs, wires, distributor cap, and rotor and all that for it. So that'll be the next video, kind of a conclusion to this one, and we'll see how I did once it's all back together. But thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you on the next one.